All right, this week when you log into Schoology, you'll see there's an item there. It says a Google Sheet on vacation. Now, if you've kind of forgotten or not, we've been doing Google Sheets in here. At least we did them earlier in the year. So you're going to be building one on a vacation. And you know what? Spring break is right around the corner. So for those of you that are not aware, by the way, about when spring break actually is, because some kids don't keep track of that kind of thing, and some kids do. We'll take a look and go to the calendar here and see what spring break date we have, and that is the 15th through the 25th. Now it's kind of weird because on this one, on the 26th, we're actually back that day, which is kind of strange, but it's like a distance learning day. So yeah, that's kind of complicated, but that's something that we'll talk about later. But your spring break officially starts on the 15th. So once you're done with your finals right here on Thursday, the 11th, pretty much from the 12th through the 25th, you're going to be on vacation. So let's find somewhere to go. So if you take a look at the instructions here, I want some detailed information on the vacation you'd like to take. Notice I don't say where you can go or how much you have to spend. I don't give you a budget or anything like that. Kind of up to you, where you go and what you do. You need to have some dates, flight numbers, costs, etc. So how are we going to start this? Well, let's go down here and go to Google Sheets, and we'll start up a blank sheet. Once you have a blank sheet started, at the top here, we're going to talk about where we're going to go. So let's see, last class we went to work offline. No, thanks. Last class I said we're going to go to Chicago, so this time we'll do someplace else. This time we'll go to New York City. So let's go to New York. Sounds fun. No COVID there, right? So, and we're going to pretend all that's been lifted, by the way. So the first thing we're going to do about transportation, how much is it going to cost to get to New York City? Now, it's true, you could walk to New York City, but that might take you a while. So you could drive also, and again, that might take a while too. So we're probably going to fly, though. That's probably going to be our best bet here. So when you go to fly, one of the things when you go to look it up, I use Expedia personally for flights, but that's just to kind of get a ballpark estimate. Once I kind of have an idea of how much the flights are going to cost, then I might actually go to a particular airline. And Southwest Airlines, for example, doesn't show up on Expedia. So I'm going to start here. We're going round trip from San Diego. Look, it pops up automatically there. And we're going to be going to New York City. And we'll do, well, there's 3 different airports in New York City. So we'll just pick all of them. And our departure date, and if you noticed our it even tells you some of the prices too. So on this one, we could go this first week of spring break, the 16th to 17th, but that's not enough time, I think. And if I take a look at this, I could actually go for different prices. So it looks to me like $183. So if I go the 15th, and let's say we'll stay through the 19th, that should be a nice 5 days in New York City. So we're going to search that and see how much that costs. What Expedia does, it hits a bunch of databases is what it does, and each airplane service, they have tickets for sale, and they post them in these databases, and Expedia is one of these companies. You can go and search it. You could go directly to like American Airlines or United Airlines or whatever and search it that way too. Totally up to you. I just use this just to get like a ballpark estimate of about how much it's going to cost. And for this particular activity, this is exactly what I'm going to use to kind of lock in some numbers for your worksheet. So while it's still thinking about that, I'm going to go check on my Google Sheet here. I've got my transportation down here. I'm going to type in flight. And then we'll do days momentarily once you figure out what days it is. All right, now you can sort how these prices come in. And, almost always you want the cheapest flight. But one thing about the cheapest flight is that it might also be at the times that are the least attractive. So in this case, you leave at 10:20 at night here from San Diego. You don't get to New York City until 10:14 the next day. Oh, that's a long flight. Now, you're not in the air all that time. What happens is you have a layover somewhere, and then you're laid over for several hours. So I don't know exactly where. It looks like it's Orlando. So you'll be having to spend the night, in Disney World or whatever. and you don't get to go because you're not there long enough. And then eventually you take the flight that takes you the rest of the way up to New York City. So that's a terrible flight. I would not recommend that one at all. But it's the cheapest one. So if you're going to do a flight, okay, well, bring a pillow because you're going to be sleeping somewhere. Either you're probably sleeping on a plane for a couple hours, and then you're going to be sleeping in some airport for like 6 or 7 more until your plane takes off. Until your plane takes off and gets you there at 10. So that one's a no-go. I'm not doing that one. Here's one that's even worse. Leaves at 10 o'clock at night, doesn't get you till 11 in the next day. 10 hours, one stop. No, not doing that. San Diego to Newark. This is leaving at 8 in the afternoon, 8 in the evening, getting there at 6 in the morning. Stops in Vegas, which is nice, but you're only in Vegas for an hour. So no, that's not going to work either. A lot of these, another one, 10, not getting there at 12 the next day. This one's a possibility, leaving at 8 in the morning, getting there at 4 in the afternoon. This little guy's flying into Newark, New Jersey. It's not exactly New York City, but that's kind of close. But the most important thing about this one is that it's nonstop. Now, it doesn't really take 8 hours to fly to New York City, but you have to remember you're giving up 3 hours in time change. So when you do this, think about, the time difference there. So you're arriving at 4:04, but your watch is going to say 1:04 when you get there. So there is a time difference there. So as you take a look at these, okay, this one's probably the most attractive. So leaving at 8, getting there at 4 in the afternoon, that works for me because then I can have dinner there in New York City. And that's going to feel like a real trip. So let's go ahead and pick this one here. So here's the fare. It's $398 for economy. First check bag is $35. Okay, that means if you have any luggage to bring with you, it's $35 for the first one, and then they're going to charge you $45 for the second one. That's kind of rude. Why isn't it just $35 for each one? The reason why? Because they can make more money by charging you more for bringing 2 bags. Terrible. But anyway, so it's $398 per person. So we're going to continue on that. And then it's going to go through and do our calculation. I don't think there's any taxes on that. I think it's pretty much done. Now we have to pick a returning flight. Okay, so the one flight that we got is pretty good. When we're coming home, notice, this is a great flight coming home. We're going to fly on Alaska Airlines coming home from 5:15 to 8:15. It's actually 6 hours in the air, but it's nonstop. That's exactly what we want. We don't want to lay over anywhere. We don't get anywhere weird at time. You're leaving in the early evening, so you still have time to do things like you could go see the Statue of Liberty in the morning, and have lunch in New York City, and then be able to get to the airport with plenty of time to get here at a reasonable hour. Notice there are other flights that you can take, but you know what? I think this sounds good. I think by the time 5 o'clock rolls around, I'm going to be over New York City. So we're going to continue on this, and this should give us our final itinerary here as far as it goes, along with the price summary, and we're going to let it do its calculation here. So it's going to take a few seconds, and we're actually flying to Newark. So let's put it in here. So our flight, and I forgot to see who it was that we're actually flying. This is United on our way. So I'm going to add this, United. And it's leaving at 8 to 4 o'clock. So let me go to this. So it's United, so it's 8:04. And it's arriving there at 4:04. Interesting. Okay, so since I know this is going in the morning, I'm not showing there up at night, so that's not a weird flight. So I'm going to put the AM and PM in there because it's exactly what I would expect it to be. Coming home, we're going to be flying Alaska Airlines, so that's a little bit different. So this one I'm going to put in Alaska. And then we're leaving that one. That's 5:15 to 8:15. That's fast. But remember, you got the time difference as far as the time change. Oops, 8:15. Okay, those are our flights, and then our cost was, let's see if there's anything else that we need to do here. $397.20. So $397.20. Now, when you do these dollar things, make sure you go up here and format them as currency. So this should show up as almost $400. So that's our transportation. All right, so next thing, lodging. Where are we going to stay? I got to stay somewhere. We can't just sleep in the airport or on the streets, although some people do. I would not recommend that. So let's take a look. Let's close out of this. And this time we'll change it to stays. And we were going to New York City. So we're going to start kind of all over again. So New York. And they're going to be checking in. And our check-in dates were March 15th to the 19th, right? Sounds right. And then we're going to search. And then Expedia is going to go through and it's going to check out all the different places to stay. Now, this is not going to be every hotel in New York or in New York City, but it's going to be in this general vicinity. So if you wanted to stay right in Times Square, it's only $130. That's actually pretty cheap. But if you notice underneath there, it's $700 because you're going to be there for 4 nights. So even though that 131 looks cheap, once you get into, how many nights it is, that becomes a lot more expensive. And there's lots of different hotels to pick from. So with each one of these, you may want to take a look and see, ones that you think, look the swankiest. Moxies are nice. I've stayed at a Moxie before. There's one in ASU. Super comfortable beds. I do like the Moxies. So that's a possible there. In fact, you know what? I'm just going to go with this one. So we're going to stay at Moxie. I think it's part of Marriott is what it is, but usually they're pretty cool hotels. And notice at the front here, it doesn't really look like a hotel necessarily. It looks pretty cool. So we're going to go with the Moxie, and we need to pick what kind of bedding we're going to have. So there's a king bed here, plenty of room for me. Here's with 2 doubles if you're going with someone else. Here's one with a view. Now we're talking. So I think I would rather have that. There's another one here that has bunk beds. No, not doing bunk beds. 2 double beds. Yeah, I think I'm going to go with this other one here. So we're going to go with the king bed with a view. So where'd that one go? This is the one I want. So I'm going to hit reserve on this. There's $476 for the 4 nights, which includes the taxes and fees, which are nice. Because some places, when you go to stay at the hotel, you pay like the per night rate, and then they have like convenience fees or they have access fees. Like if you go to Las Vegas and you stay at the Mandalay Bay, they make you pay for the pool access, which is like $35 a day. It's like a resort fee is what it is. I'm not sure what it costs now, but that's something that they tack on. With this particular location, this includes everything. So it's $476 for 4 nights. So I'm going to go back to my spreadsheet here. Lodging, I'm going to be staying at the Moxie. And the lodging was 474, right? 476. So 476. And then this should be dollars. I'm going to put that in. And then we got to have some food. How to eat. Now, places to eat in New York City, I'm sure there's lots of them. So, you could eat at the Moxie Hotel. Sometimes they have food there. Eating at hotels sometimes is really expensive. It's usually a lot more expensive than if you found like a Taco Bell or something like that in the general area. Now, where this particular hotel is at or where you plan on visiting while you're in, wherever it is you go on vacation might, make a decision for you. If you take a look at where this Moxie is here, it's right here in Manhattan. And Manhattan, you got to know, is a pretty expensive place. You're definitely not going to find an In-N-Out burger in Manhattan. Okay, you'd be lucky even to find a McDonald's in Manhattan, but I'm sure there's plenty of them. So if you start thinking about how much are you willing to pay for it, well, it needs to be part of your budget. So we're going to be there Monday. We're going to be there Tuesday. We're going to be there Wednesday. Whoops. Thursday and Friday, because we're there for 5 days. And then we're going to figure breakfast, lunch, and then dinner. And breakfast, let's just say you go cheap. Let's say you do find a McDonald's somewhere around there. We'll just say $10 for breakfast. And then lunch. I'm not really a big lunch eater for the most part, and you figure you could probably cheap out on lunch also. So, but we're going to say it's probably cost a little more. So we're going to go 15 for lunch. And then when it comes to dinner, yeah, you're probably going to be paying a little more for dinner. So dinner is probably going to be more expensive. So I'm going to put that as $50. And even though that seems like a high number, once you do the cost of your food with tax and tip, you can get to that 50 number really quick, especially in New York City. So let's see what it is for all these days. So I'm going to drag this over here so it fills it in for all 10. I'm going to do the same thing here with lunch. And I'm going to do the same thing here for dinner. Now, when it comes to the total, you might wonder to yourself, well, how am I going to total all this up? Because these are all in separate categories. They're kind of all over the place. Well, the great thing about any spreadsheet application is that it doesn't really care. So I'm going to do an equal sum, open parenthesis, and I'm going to select every one of these cells. Doesn't matter whether they're up and down, side to side, across, makes no difference. And then when I press enter, I see calculate all those together. Now notice I've got 375. This should be dollars. So let me change that to dollars. In fact, let me change all of these to dollars, exception of total, because that's not a monetary thing there. So there we got. So we got 375 bucks. Now we haven't talked about going to any shows. We haven't talked about going to the Statue of Liberty. We haven't talked about doing any of that other kind of stuff. And we can just call that, we'll call that activities is what we'll call that. Because you might go to a show. You might just go to the Ellis Island. Who knows what you're going to do while you're in there. But you would want to, again, budget like per day about how much are you going to spend on activities. I don't want you to really spend that much time going through this and saying, okay, well, this day is going to cost me this much, that day is going to cost me that much. But if you kind of think, if you go to like New York and we'll say shows, and it's probably going to be tough right now because of COVID. They're probably not having a lot of shows right now. Or let's say you want to go see Christina Aguilera. Well, she's not there on that date. Doggone it. Well, let's just see what the virtual experience costs and see if there's a price anywhere here. Score big. Let's see what the tickets cost. And then we'll throw in as one of the things that we do. Oh, look, it's only $572. Okay, we're probably not going to be doing that. So, but just for fun, we'll go ahead and say, we'll see CA here for Christina Aguilera, and that's 572 bucks. For that, I think I would want the girl to come to my hotel room and sing to me, but it's probably not an option either. So anyway, so Christina Aguilera, 572 bucks. So that's part of our activities. So again, you probably would have a total down here for total for activities. And then you could also do like statue, because you got to see the statue, right? Statue of Liberty, and we'll just call it Statue OL. And we'll just find out just real quick how much that costs. I know I've been there before, but I don't remember how much it costs. I don't think it was that expensive, but I know it wasn't free. You didn't get on a boat and go over there for nothing. Looks like it's 20 bucks. So book now. Yeah, we reserve a ticket. Sure, book now. Let's go. Give me a price. $23.50 per person. So like I said, it's not free. So we're going to add that to our list here. So we're going to see the Statue of Liberty. That's $23. You probably even want to say you're probably going to buy some kind of thing when you're there too. But like I've been to the Statue of Liberty or whatever, but we're not going to include that. We'll just say 23 bucks to go see the statue. So now we have a total. So now we've got a total, and we're going to go equal sum parenthesis, and then we're going to pick the different amounts of activities that it cost us. Okay, so our total is $5.85 for that. So that's probably about where I want to be. So let's do a total cost for trip. Now I'm really going to bend your mind a little bit. So when it comes to total cost for trip, we're going to do an equal sum again, except this time when you do your open parenthesis, you're going to pick your cells. In this case, this is cell B5 or B6 rather, and then you're going to do a plus, and then we're going to go to our lodging, which is here. So it's going to do plus B9, and then we're going to add a plus, and then our total for food, and then a plus, and then we're going to have our total for activities, and then enter. So our total cost for the trip currently is $1,800. You might go, wow, how do we get from like a $400 flight to $1,800? Well, it adds quick. So one of the things you might cut out of this might be the Christina Aguilera experience. So if that's the case, when you go and delete that out of here, then that's going to affect your total up here without you having to do anything else. And this is why you always do formulas and you don't put numbers in. Because right now, let's say you found some cheaper tickets for Christina Aguilera. Oh, it's not going to be $500. It's only going to be $200. So when you put that $200 in there, this number gets updated automatically. You did not have to change that. If you sat and you wrote all these out, it says $397 plus $476 plus $375. Yeah, that's not flexible. Let's say the lodging, or let's say your breakfast rates or whatever changes. You want to go to a buffet on Wednesday. I want to go big. Let's spend $100 on dinner on Wednesday. Okay, so that affects this total here, which also affects this total. That's the beauty of a spreadsheet. You can change your numbers anywhere you want over here, and that makes everything easy. Okay, so that's why when you get to this formula here, this is the main one I'm going to be looking for, by the way. I'll look at this on all of yours and make sure you have this formula up here. This is the one I'm most interested in, the total cost for the trip. They should all be calculated, but especially this one. Okay, you shouldn't have a bunch of numbers in here. You shouldn't have, and if you have no formula for this, then you'll get no points for this. So once you have all this done, you're going to send this to Schoology, and that is your